Have you noticed a really peculiar phenomenon? When a man, especially a straight man, wears a designer bag, women, me including, assemble in an encouragement. You go, girl, get that bag. It reads as bold, progressive, and even subtly subversive. A man wearing a luxury accessory or just simply being into fashion is perceived as being fashion forward, expressive, or just simply successful. Contrast this with what happens when a woman, a regular woman, not a celebrity or an heiress, buys herself something visibly expensive. A student, a colleague, a friend, just a woman who works and decides to spend a part of these earnings to buy herself something really nice. And suddenly the sensibility police arrives. How much did that cost? Oh my god, you spent how much? Did you really need another bag? Isn't that a bit excessive? I could never spend this much money on such a stupid thing. This shift is subtle but really telling in my opinion. The wealth displayed by celebrities is common and it barely registers with us anymore because, well, it's abstract, it's distant, it's removed from us. But when a regular woman indulges in a luxury, it feels personal, it feels almost provocative, and as though her purchase demands justification. Which, in my opinion, raises a deeper question. Why does everything a woman does needs to be sensible? Why must her choices be always prudent, practical, utilitarian, and defensible? A woman's spending is rarely allowed to exist in realm of joy, enjoyment, pleasure, desire, or symbolism. It must have a function beyond joy. It must be examined. And it must be explained. You do not see people standing on golf courses yelling into the wind, "You spent $3,000 on golf clubs and drivers? That's insane!" The reality is most people wouldn't even know how much these items cost. And when they do find out, well, they just shrug or lift an eyebrow, roll their eyes, sigh, and, well, move on. Male-coded hobbies are granted this unspoken assumption of legitimacy. Their costs are normalized and absorbed into the background of what ambition and leisure and success just looks like. A woman's purchase, however, is treated as a moral event and judged as such. And I think at heart of this lies an unspoken, deep intrinsic discomfort with women's autonomy, especially financial autonomy. So if you have found yourself maybe personally called out because a lot of those issues are internalized, I am not excluding myself here. So I think that's a very interesting subject to ponder upon. Historically, luxury items or pricey, expensive items were gifted to women by their fathers or by their husbands, by their lovers. But that was something that was bestowed upon a woman. That was not something she just went out and purchased for herself, partially because, well, just in the United States, one of the most progressive countries, Equal Credit Opportunity Act was taken into action and became legitimate in 1974. It is just over 50 years old, and that was the time when a woman could legally get a credit card or a mortgage in her name without the signature of her husband. And that every time I think about this a little too much, it makes me want to cry because of how recent it is. You probably have relatives, if not parents, then grandparents who, well, lived through this. It's not that far removed. So when a woman buys herself something expensive, it almost like disrupts the narrative. That bag, let's say, it's no longer a symbol of being chosen or rewarded or capped. It becomes a symbol of self-determination. She wanted it, she could afford it, she bought it. That's it, end of story. Perhaps this is why it hits differently. Now, acquiring and credit, that is a beast of its own that I really want to talk in a separate video about. I think this topic cannot be spoken about without drawing the correlation between the price and the quality, because those two are no longer the same, let's be honest. This, along with the subject of monopolization of luxury market, is really important to note. Not all luxury is created equal. Let's state this as a fact. And in this day and age, branding eclipsed craftsmanship by a long mile. The industry as a whole thrives on the perceived value of an item as much as the material value of it. And that's why discernment matters. Which is why 9 times out of 10, I would always choose vintage item over a brand new one. It's not purely out of sustainability or financial reasons, and not even aesthetics. They just simply don't make things like they used to. Vintage luxury carries evidence of labor, craftsmanship, longevity, and integrity of design. Objects were made to endure, to last, to serve, rather than just simply to send you a signal that this item is expensive. In this sense, buying a luxury vintage item is not just an act of mindless consumption, even though it can be one, let's be honest, but in my opinion it is, and it should be, mindful, conscious act. A quiet refusal to shrink into palatability, if you will. It is a decision to value craftsmanship, history, and beauty, as well as pleasure, without apology. And obviously we cannot talk about this subject without examining how the luxury markets became monopolized over the past however many years, and I will go deeper into history in just a few moments. Why is it important to talk about that? Well, because this scrutiny of women's consumption drives the deeper tension between the price and the quality, especially in this increasingly monopolized market, particularly in ways that rely on women's desire while simultaneously policing and regulating it. Back in the day, once upon a time, the prices in the luxury market were directly tethered to the quality and the cost to make the goods. You required skilled, educated labor, time-intensive craftsmanship, small production runs, and also superior materials. Quality justified the cost, not through this mystique and ambiance behind it. It was directly driven from the cost of making it. A bag was expensive because it took dozens of hours to make by a skilled craftsman, artisan, and well, the leather was made to last decades rather than just disintegrate. And it was meant to last you a lifetime and not just a season. In today's day and age, the correlation between the two, the price and the quality, has become way more ambiguous, and consolidation under the just handful of conglomerates is driving the disparity between the two even farther. Under those luxury conglomerates, the production has become more standardized, while inflating the prices through branding, artificial scarcity. And please do not talk about Hermes and do not jumble it together while talking about artificial scarcity. That again is a subject on its own. I respect Hermes as a brand so deeply, and their support for small artists. I even made a podcast episode on the Santa Cruz Art League channel about Baptiste Ferraud, one of the artists that was recruited by Hermes. I will link it above. It was a good fun episode. But going back to the conglomerates, it is more about cultural signaling these days, not about the craftsmanship and quality. So these days, bags cost more, not just simply because they are more expensive to produce. They're better made, but because they are higher positioned on the pyramid, so to say, the price increasingly reflects the market dominance rather than just craftsmanship. And I'm going to give you a brief timeline of the monopolization of luxury market, again very briefly because that's a subject for a video on its own. Let's go back to the pre-1980s. Most luxury fashion houses operated independently. Most of them were family-owned, family-run. Then you can see the dominance of craftsmanship and regional workshops and founder-run creative process. Growth was slow and the prestige was built over decades, but the production was also relatively limited. So going back to the mid-80s, that's when you can begin to see the inception of the monopolization. Luxury and fashion started increasingly attracting investors because they, as women entered the workforce, they started to have more discretionary income, and well, people saw the opportunity there. Bernard Arnault enters the scene in 1984. He acquires Dior, which became the beginning of LVMH. And slowly fashion started shifting from artisanal values and artisanal heritage to scalable business model. It was more about business rather than just artisan craftsmanship and creative vision of a talented person. So late 80s and 90s can be considered as the official birth of the conglomerates. In 1987, Louis Vuitton and Moet Hennessy merge, creating LVMH, and Gucci, which later became Kering, they begin to acquire more and more fashion brands. So luxury becomes at this time portfolio-based. Brands become assets, not just stand-alone cultural houses. Then when we move to 2000s, early 2000s, that's when you can see the aggressive expansion. Conglomerates begin to acquire fashion houses, cosmetics, beauty brands, jewelry, leather goods, all of it. That includes global retail expansion. That's when the mall culture, especially within the United States, which I was not present for, but sounds terrific. During that period, luxury becomes more standardized. Emergence of celebrities helps the vision, and that's when the brands and the conglomerates start having massive marketing budgets, and marketing becomes a beast of its own. 2010s is the time of monopolization of heritage and culture. A small number of groups, primarily we can count them on one hand, it's LVMH, Kering, and Richemont are the biggest ones. They acquire, well, the majority of the fashion brands as we know them. And I dearly, dearly miss the fashion houses, even though I was not alive during the time, 80s and pre-80s times, when it seems that they were just driven by extremely passionate people. Mostly they were men, of course, but still. From then on until the present day, the consumer choice, it seems so abundant. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of luxury brands to choose from. But as you can probably realize, that's more of an illusion of choice rather than factually based reality. So at this time, price signals more of a status and accessibility than craftsmanship and heritage. Sadly so. Why does this monopolization matter? Well, because it narrows the choice while amplifying the pressure, especially on women. They also control the narrative of taste, aspiration, legitimacy, and women are also sold this idea of empowerment, while simultaneously being shamed for doing so. So that's a catch-22 in itself. Luxury consumption for women is utterly paradoxical because on one hand it is marketed as self-love and independence and reward, and on the other hand women are expected to consume discreetly, responsibly, modestly, wisely, especially if she has a family. I don't have kids yet, but women who have families and responsibilities are being shamed for buying something nice for themselves and not putting this money towards their family, while their male counterparts are not being held to the same standard, which seems utterly unfair to me. So it's almost like you must buy, but don't buy too much. Well, you have to buy something nice, but not too nice. And you have to enjoy it, but don't enjoy it too much, because then you would be showing off. And obviously, if you own it, be prepared to explain yourself and give a good justification as to why and how. All while men's luxury consumption is often framed as either investment, a hobby, or status, all while women's is just pure indulgence. Even when the object is the same, the moral framing is very different. This is why, in my opinion, we cannot separate this discussion and the correlation between the price and the quality from the gender. When quality becomes symbolic rather than tangible and physical, women are left paying not just for an object itself, but rather for an access to legitimacy, to status, to seriousness, to be taken at face value, or at least to be taken as serious as a man would be. And I feel like this is especially applies in either of the two cases, either when a woman works in a male-dominated field, or when she does something creative and works for herself and her job is viewed as acceptable for a woman, if it makes sense. I hope it does. So in a way, the bag must earn its way to legitimacy the way golf clubs or drivers never have to. Does that seem fair to you? Choosing vintage in this sense becomes more than just an aesthetic preference to me. It is a quiet rejection of those inflated values and systems of monopolized desire. Vintage pieces carry proof through survival, through lusting for a period of time. Those pieces have already outlived trends and marketing cycles and moral panics about women spending too much. So their worth is no longer hypothetical. In a market that makes women doubt their judgment on a constant basis, choosing objects that have already proven their worth feels like reclaiming authority, not just your style, but the value overall. And I think it's important to note, I do not reject modern fashion. I love fashion so much, and it saddens me, genuinely saddens me, this tendency towards globalization and the conglomerates swallowing up fashion as a whole. But if it makes you feel better, I feel slight shift. Like in the past, I would say 2 seasons, I'm excited about fashion again. I am looking forward to it. The quality, yes, the quality is still, and I fear will be, an issue for us. But I'm optimistic. I really am. And to wrap all of this up, I'm going to say that female autonomy does not need to be sensible to be valid. And I'm going to say this again. Female autonomy does not need to be sensible to be valid. Sometimes it looks like choosing joy or craftsmanship and leather or fabric. And sometimes the price tag of it makes people uncomfortable. And that discomfort, that's not a woman's problem to solve. I hope you enjoyed this video. Share your thoughts in the comments, and I hope to see you in the next video. Love you, bye!